You've probably already been told that if you want a big, fat and punchy snare drum, you need an SSL channel strip, boost 8K, boost 2.5K, boost 200Hz, add a compressor with a slow attack and a fast release, right? The problem is that when you do this in your own mixes, your snare drum doesn't sound nothing like the snare drum of the guy that just told you to do that in the first place. And today I'll show you everything you need to do to get the best sound out of your snare drum. And by the way, you can download the free multi-tracks from one of the songs that I'll be showing you from the link that is in the description right below. Let's go to the demo. Okay, so you're about to hear a really modern production, modern rock song with a drum sound, a snare sound really punchy and in your face. And so let me show you how this sounds.
Part of me was stuck in the past. No, I'm no more.
So really big, fat, punchy snare drum. Now let me show you what is happening with the snare drum. So here's the snare drum with just this processing. Now the whole kit. So it doesn't sound nothing like when it's playing with the whole kit. So why is that, right? So what I'm using here is, guess what? SSL channel strip with the boost at 8K, a boost at 2.5K, removing some of the honkiness at about 900 Hz and boosting 200 Hz, and a compressor with a slow attack and a fast release. Here I'm just removing some ringing. And this is just saturation. So as you can see, it doesn't sound nothing like you want it to sound, right? That is if you're into this kind of drum sound anyways. So let's add some reverb and some parallel compression, and let's hear how it sounds. Much bigger, right? Let's compare without the parallel compressor and the reverb. So problem solved, maybe, right? So here's the drum sound with the snare, with all the processing, reverb and parallel compressor. Much more powerful, but it's still something missing. And this happened to me, I don't know, maybe 2010, 2011. I was like, man, there's something missing in my snare drum. And I used to listen to my overhead track and I was like, this is kind of the sound that I want for my snare drum. And so I used to mic my drum kit and hit my snare drum, record some samples and use them in the mix, but this still wasn't the thing. And eventually I came up with the room sound. Of course, at that time there was little to no information on the internet, and so I have to discover for myself. And so let me show you what happens when you add some room samples. So here's without the snare room, and then I will add the snare room. Big difference, right? So now you have all this depth and size in your snare drum. But there's more. Let's put together the room mics. And so now you actually have that big, fat, bigger than life snare drum, right? And so just to show you what I'm using here, I'm using Trigger for this example with stock samples, which is the dream snare. So if you have the Slate Trigger, you have these samples. And then I'm compressing like if I was compressing a room mic, and I'm adding a little bit of EQ because I want it to be more bright. The sample is going for the reverb and the parallel compressions, and it sounds like this. Which sounds really cool to me, if you ask me. And when you put everything together, you get this sound. Which sounds really big, fat and punchy and right in your face. Now you have to be careful with your room sound because it's not every day that you get a really great sounding room. And so if it doesn't sound good, just stick with the sample and you'll be okay. Now here's a sneaky trick to add to your room bus. So this is how usually your room bus sound. So if you want to get all that ambience from the snare, you need to compress a lot of rooms. The problem is that it has all these cymbals, and when you bring up the volume, you will hear a lot of the cymbals. So here's a sneaky trick. I'm using this Pro MB from FabFilter, which I really love this plugin because I can use it in so many ways besides the multi-band compressor. And so what I'm doing here is I selected these two range of frequencies, and I have this set to expand mode, and it's side chaining to the snare drum. So what happens is that every time there's a snare hit, this will jump in volume. And the only thing that will jump in volume is the frequencies that I selected. Check this out. Cool, right? So this way you can keep your rooms to the level that you want, that fit the song, but every time there's a snare hit, it gets louder, which is really cool because you can actually hear the snap and the attack and all the room ambience from the room's mics. Now this could end up here, but unfortunately it doesn't, because this is a mix, and a mix, just like when you make a cake, you need to mix all the ingredients so you have a final result, a final flavor, right? And the same goes for mixing, which means that to get this snare sound, that drum sound, that guitar sound, that wherever sound, there's a lot of things playing a role. And for instance, I have a compressor here in my drum bus. Does it make a difference? Well, maybe 1%, but it is 1%. But there's more. There's my two bus, which has this processing. Here's what it does to the mix. Let's hear without these EQs. And there's my mix bus compressor. There's tape, there's more compression. So this is just to say that although it's not that hard to make the kind of sound that you want, it's not that simple. It's not like use an SSL channel strip and boost this and that and you get the sound that you want. Now, just to show you that this works in a lot of different genres, let me show you in this song that you probably already heard in this channel too. So this is even more heavier thing, I guess, but it's kind of a different approach to the snare. But let me show you what I did here. So here's the snare. And you're hearing the snare with both reverb and parallel compression. And let's add the snare room. So same principle and same strategy here. Add the rooms. Which again, I'm using the Pro MB with the same settings to get the same results. And so when you hear all the drums, which again, there's this processing happening too. And there's tape again, and there's more compression again. So a lot of things again that when combined get me the sound that I want. Not only for the snare and for the whole drums, but for the whole mix. So everything I just show you, you can use it in every genre or pretty much every genre. You just need to tweak it to fit your own mixes. And that's it for today. And I really hope that everything that we just saw really helps you getting the snare drum, the drum sound that you really love. So I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers!